Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm now going to pass it over to Mayor Polderman for the welcome remarks.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us again for the community meeting tonight. While we meet today on a virtual platform, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the land in which we each call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improve our understanding of our local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. I would like to recognize the Lytton area, Clay-Cum-Sheen and Inca-Clapton, where our efforts to safely return are centered. We are welcome to, or you are welcome to acknowledge the territory in which you are joining us from in the chat as well. Before I speak more about our resiliency plans, I would like to acknowledge some of the many people joining us today from across the Lytton area. Thank you for being here. Brad Viss, Member of Parliament, Mission Matsqui Fraser Canyon, Parliamentary Secretaries Jennifer Rice and Rolly Russell. I'd also like to acknowledge those of you calling in from the Resiliency Center in Lytton today. Thank you for joining us. A lot has happened since the last time we met. We've made significant strides on moving the short-term recovery plan forward, but we hit a number of roadblocks and delays due to the heavy rainfall we experienced a few weeks ago. The landslide and flooding have made a bad situation worse, and I know it's taken an additional toll on all of our community members. I want to thank the residents and the organizations that went over and above to set up relief centers, food banks, and so many other services to support the community during this difficult time. We could not have made it through without your help. You've shown each other kindness and support, and that's made all the difference. I also want to thank our neighboring bands, businesses, relief organizations, agencies, government partners, volunteers, donors, and others across BC and beyond who continue to support. The evacuation continues to be difficult. I want to assure you that despite these setbacks, the village council and staff are committed to rebuilding Lytton. Later this evening, our recovery manager, Allison Post, will provide a number of updates on the progress made so far on the recovery plan. But I wanted to quickly highlight a few pieces of good news. The recovery team has grown since the last meeting. Leslie Grew is now here supporting the village as our acting CAO. Ron Matusi remains on the team and will be supporting as a policy group liaison officer. He's unable to attend tonight. Terry Haas continues in his role as CFO. Allison Post is now fully in her role as recovery manager. Ron Dickinson is leading the demolition and building processes. Owen Collins, site response. James High, project management, are also on the team to support this process. Shannon Story is continuing to lead the rebuild of the village corporate records. We also have a number of additional roles now posted on the website, and we encourage anyone interested to apply to help us in this recovery. Nikki Best has replaced Lori Wiedemann. The Citizens Advisory Committee has been officially established and has already met twice. And the new Unmet Needs Committee will be starting up in the coming weeks. Thanks to the hard work of a number of residents and staff, the Resiliency Center is up and running in Lytton and is providing valuable resources for area residents, including a business center, social services, supports and supplies, and a chance for residents to connect with one another. Council has resolved to waive the enforcement of the utility fees and charges bylaw and has directed staff to use funds from the donations received to cover 100% of the costs of water and sewer utilities from July 1st to December 31st, 2021, to include properties and structures that were lost or those that are uninhabitable. Also, 85% of the water fee charges for the period July 1st to December 31st for the Loring and Ponderosa residents will be invoiced, with 15% of the water fees to be covered by donations. Work is continuing on debris removal and the demolition process. Owen Collins will speak to that later. The fire and the heavy rainfall have demonstrated the need to rebuild our community as sustainable as possible to remain resilient for years into the future. So we've been working hard to understand what could be achieved through the current BC Energy Step Code and the building code and beyond. Yesterday, the province announced that they were providing $1 million grant to support the village in its economic recovery from the devastation caused by the wildfire. From this funding, $500,000 will support the community in its effort to restart the local economy, and $500,000 will be for operational activities at the village of Lytton. This means the village can continue to pay its staff who are leading the wildfire recovery in the community. I want to sincerely thank the province for all its support that has been provided and committed so far. We continue to work together to ensure that funding is in place to support residents and begin recovery. Together, we are making important strides. As I mentioned at our last meeting, we won't have all the answers to all the questions today, but we'll do our best to answer what we know right now. Again, I want to thank you for taking the time to be here with us tonight. Now, I'd like to introduce Bad Biss, Member of Parliament for Mission Maxley Fraser Canyon.
Thank you, Mayor Polderman, and thank you to everyone on the call with us this evening. I am working on Ottawa time today, so I requested in advance to speak at the beginning for some obvious reasons. Just this morning, I received, well, actually, before I start, Parliament returned 2 weeks ago, and I can say that the number one thing I've been working on is advancing the issues of Lytton. Every time I'm standing up in the House of Commons, I'm bringing up Lytton forest fire and flood recovery. I've spoken directly with the Prime Minister, the Minister of Transport, multiple times with the Minister of Public Safety, both federally and provincially, the Minister for Pacific Economic Development, Mental Health and Addictions, basically doing a full court lobby press now that Parliament's working again to make sure that Lytton gets the funding it deserves and it needs when the upcoming federal budget comes forward and through other disaster related line items at the Treasury Board. So some positive news. I got a letter dated December 7th, which I know the mayor, MLA Rice and Russell were CC'd on. And I was told by the Minister of Public Safety that a funding request for Lytton has now been received, and that the federal officials are working with the province to expeditiously provide an advance payment to help with costs associated with rebuilding homes and public works, restoring community services, and to help reestablish the viability of small businesses. And they said working farms as well in the letter. So I take that as a positive development, and I will be pressing for more details accordingly. But it's good to see that the province has made that funding request because my first meeting with Minister Blair was asking about funding requests and for me to keep pushing. So that's good. I'm glad that the Red Cross donations that Mayor Polderman mentioned are being utilized. Of course, the federal government, at our request, did begin matching those earlier in the year, and I'm glad they're being put to good use. I have received other assurances from the Minister for BC Economic Development that the feds are looking at longer term economic recovery. My request, I know Deb Arnott from Community Futures is on the call tonight. We're still looking for a low interest loans or other loan supports for small businesses moving forward, and that's an ongoing file I'm continuing to push on. Another file I'm continuing to push on is housing across the board in the Fraser Canyon and but I haven't had any success on that file yet, but I'm still going to keep pushing. And finally, I'm glad that the Canada Post issues got resolved sooner rather than later, and that the new post office is in the process of being set up. That was directly my responsibility, and I'm glad that that's moving forward, because I noted at the last community meeting that I wasn't getting the answers I wanted for you. So I'm glad that that's been resolved. Brittany Lang is on the call with me today. She's my constituency manager. And if I do have to leave early, any questions directed at me can go through Brittany, and I will provide an email response within the next 2 or 3 business days. I want to thank everyone for their continued resiliency. I know a lot of people are struggling with mental health, and that the floods and everything else just compounded the trauma that many of you are suffering. I recognize that. I'm pushing more for mental health supports at the federal level as well. And as always, I'm always available to meet with you one-on-one when required. And again, thank you for Mayor Polderman for making just a few minutes for me to quickly say a few words at the federal level. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, MP Gus. So hi, everyone. I'm Jasmine Patrick, if we haven't already met, and I'll be helping moderate the community meeting today. As the moderator for this evening, my role is to manage the flow of the meeting and keep us on time. I just want to give you a quick glance at the agenda. So we'll get Andrea to skip slides here. Perfect. Just so you know what to expect over the next 2 hours. So in a second, I'm going to run through some housekeeping items and Zoom tools so everybody knows how to use the platform. Then our recovery manager, Allison, will provide an update on the short-term recovery plan initiatives. And each section is going to be followed by an opportunity to ask questions and provide input. The Red Cross will then provide an update, and we'll follow that with a Q&A, and then we'll open the entire session up to all questions. So we're also encouraging you today to share some good news stories and messages of thanks to other residents or organizations in the community that have really stepped up to make a difference. And finally, at the end, we're just going to close off with some final remarks and some key dates for the next meeting. So the purpose of today's session is to provide an opportunity for residents to ask questions and give feedback, provide you with the latest updates on short-term recovery plan initiatives, and then also discuss Red Cross services in more detail. There are a few rules for participation today. So first and foremost, you should be aware that the meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the Village of Lytton website. We also ask that you be respectful in your tone and with the use of the chat box and of the time by keeping your questions direct and to the point. Please use appropriate language, refrain from using profanities or abusive language. Negative comments toward any individuals will not be tolerated, and anyone using abusive language will be removed from the session today. If any media are in the room, you are very welcome to be here. We're glad you're here. However, the primary purpose of the meeting today is to answer resident questions. So we respectfully ask that you hold any questions and email them to communication@lytton.ca after the meeting, and we'll get back to you. We won't have enough time for all the questions asked to be answered tonight. However, they will be answered in writing as soon as possible with the responses posted online. And we expect to have them posted within a week this time. So you should see them by the end of the week next week. And finally, please speak up. We're here today to hear your thoughts and your questions and your feedback to help us make better decisions moving forward. So please share your thoughts and ideas. So just over to the next slide here, I'm going to take a couple minutes just to explain how to use the Zoom platform and then run through some general best practices. So first, I just want to let you know that you can change how your name appears on the screen. So if you click the 3 dots on your picture just at the top there, you'll see the option. I can actually see most people's names, but a few people are registering as guests or numbers. So this is just going to help me address you by name if you want to speak up. At the bottom of your screen, you're also going to see a chat button. If you click the chat, there's going to be a box that pops up to the right hand of your screen. So you can use that chat function today to send us all your questions. At the end of the meeting, there's also going to be an opportunity to ask your questions out loud. So if you do want to ask your questions out loud, please use the raise hand function on Zoom. And you can find that at the bottom of your screen by clicking on reactions and then clicking raise hand. When it's your turn, I'll read your name and we'll ask you to unmute. You'll see a pop-up on your screen and you just have to click that to unmute yourself. If you're joining us today on a landline or calling in, you can also participate. It's just a little bit different. So *6 will allow you to mute or unmute, and then *9 allows you to raise your hand. So *6 and *9. If at any point in the session today you run into any technical issues and need help, please email communication@lytton.ca and one of us will do our best to help you out. So if you haven't already seen them, the unanswered questions from the November 8th meeting last month are posted to the website along with the recording. So we'll put those links in the chat for you. Oh, they're already in there, perfect. And as I mentioned before, so we'll do that again. Any unanswered questions will go in a Q&A and they'll be posted within a week's time. So now I'm going to pass it over to Allison to provide an overview of the short-term recovery plan initiatives.
Good evening, everyone. For those who I haven't met, my name is Allison Post, and I am proud to serve the Village of Lytton as the recovery manager. And I'm privileged to join you this evening from the lands of the Lekwungen speaking peoples on the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations. So very, as I said, very happy to be part of the recovery team. And in the past month, since the last community update, as Mayor Polderman has alluded to, we have made a lot of progress, but of course there's a vast amount of work to do that everybody is aware of. So we're going to give you an update on some of that this evening. And those are in the order as contemplated in the short-term recovery plan. So just before, I think we're ready to pass it off to Steve Surrett, who is from the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, and he's going to be giving us an update on the highways in the Lytton area and when we can expect access to return. So Steve, over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Allison. Just want to start by acknowledging that I'm joining you today from the traditional unceded territory of the Secwepemc peoples, where I've been working for the last few weeks as we respond to this event. My typical role is the Deputy Director for the Southern Interior region. And I've been leading the response for our ministry on the widespread flooding that we've experienced all across the region, really. But we'll focus my update today on the Highway 1 corridor from Spence's Bridge to Hope and the damage that's occurred there and just some of the status. So from the November 14th, 15th event, the canyon experienced, so we had 15 different sites that experienced some form of damage or debris on the road. 12 of those sites have been repaired or are open. So repairs are ongoing but aren't restricting access. We've got 4 major sites. And I'll give a little bit more detail on those ones. So starting in the north end, so the Nikomin sites at Nikomin River Road, there's actually 3 concurrent activities going on there. There's reestablishing the Nikomin River Bridge across to the Nikomin community. There's an installation of a temporary detour bridge to cross the highway. That's underway. And then concurrently, we're also working on the rehabilitation of the damaged Nikomin highway bridge as well. That suffered damage, but we believe we can rehabilitate with the goal of opening the highway initially with a single lane detour around that bridge. And then shortly thereafter, reopening the highway all over the bridge. So we do expect when we open that it'll be a 1-lane detour, traffic controlled and 30 kilometers an hour through the site until we can get the rehab done. Moving up, there's the Tank Hill site. That is the site that we were working very closely with CP, where the CP rail overhead was damaged quite significantly and our highway was wiped out. That one is well underway. The rail has been restored. We were getting starting to get closer up to the highway subgrid, but there's still a lot of work to do with most of the drainage and getting ready to open up with an at-grade rail crossing when we do open the highway through that area. So there needs to be controls and appropriate preemption and traffic management that goes with having an at-grade rail crossing on our highway as a temporary solution. And I'll say that all these updates I'm coming through with now are very much temporary solutions in order for us to get the highway open as fast as possible. And I'll touch a little bit on the recovery after the fact. Moving on, there's the Gladwin Creek culvert failures. We were able to construct a detour around those ones, so there is access through that site. However, we're working to restore both lanes of access on the highway prior to opening. But if needed, we can open through again a single lane detour through that one. And then moving north, the Jackass Mountain Slide or Falls Creek, quite a large washout of the highway. That's also affecting CN. That one, our plan is actually to install it's going to be a 260-foot temporary acro bridge across the span while we work on the long-term piece. So that's also going to be a single lane structure, given the site topography and the restraints through there. Single lane is all we could install quickly. Right now, we're still on track, for that mid-January opening of the highway. We're working as much as possible to speed that up. That's the goal, is to beat that time frame. But at this point, especially coming in the winter and the challenges we experience, that's what we think is a competent target, but working to speed that up as much as possible because we absolutely appreciate the impacts this has in just on the local communities, but also the importance of getting redundancy into our network to make sure we can keep the supply chain moving and keep people moving. So one thing to remind you of is the temporary works. When we do get open, it won't be like the highway was initially. There will be those single lane sections. There will be an at-grade rail crossing, so you won't be able to travel at the same speed that you did prior to the event. But the long-term recovery work is already underway as well, just to make sure that we're moving through that as quickly as possible. Some of them will take months. Some of them will take easily a year. But that work is already underway as well in the background. Appreciating, we want to make sure that operationally we can function for this for a little while, but the sooner we can get back to normal, the better off for everybody involved. The last thing I'll mention should be out. The first one should be out Monday, but we are going to be putting out a newsletter to the community and locally around there, just around the status of the works, progress, and any updates that we've had that will come out weekly. So the first one will be Monday, and we'll plan on doing that weekly just to give everybody a good overview of the progress made week by week and any updates on status of opening or things that might change. So that'll start next week. I think that's my update. Now, Allison, happy to take questions now or.
Perfect. Yeah. If anybody has any questions, please use the chat box and we'll go through them until we run out of time for this section. We have about a minute left. So if you have any questions for Steve on highways or transportation, please let us know. I see, I believe it's Noni McCann that has her hand raised. So Noni, I'm going to ask you to unmute now so you can answer your question. There you go.
Thank you. I have two questions for you. You didn't say anything about Highway 8, and Highway 8 kind of matters to us as well. And I do wonder, I was reading the thing today that said when these highways open, this is only for certain purposes. And I'm assuming though, from what you're saying, that local traffic at least will be able to use these 1-lane sections and the modified road as it will be when it opens.
Yeah, so I'll answer your second question first. So yeah, absolutely. Like we still don't know at this point when we do open what type of restrictions we may or may not have to put in place from the essential travel piece. That'll largely depend on other highways that are open. But what I do know is yes, local traffic will absolutely be able to access through the corridor as required through that I'm confident in. And Highway 8, sorry, my apologies on that. So Highway 8, we've got another team that's focused on restoring immediate access as much as we can. They've made some pretty good progress over the last little bit, starting to get access back to the affected communities. Power has started to be restored. There's a lot of work to do for that one. Anybody who's seen some of the photos in order to restore temporary access to the people that have been cut off, really months of work, but constantly moving on that one as well to try and restore access as much as we can. That's another one. Newsletters have already gone out on that one to provide regular updates. So if this group hasn't received it, I can certainly make sure that we connect and get the right distribution list so that you're also getting the updates, the weekly updates on progress on Highway 8 as well. But that damage is pretty catastrophic, and the long-term planning for that is also underway. But it's going to be that's going to be a lot of work to plan and figure out the best way to do it.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Steve. I think that was the last question or the only question on that section. But if over the night you think of anything else, please put them in the chat and we'll make sure you get answers to those. So Allison, please feel free to move on to Safe Return.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Steve. We really appreciate your time. And I know you would recommend Drive BC, the Drive BC website for all of the current updates. And we look forward to receiving those newsletters and sending those out to the community. So moving on to Safe Return. I know this has been a very key aspect of the recovery plan and key related to Safe Return is debris removal. That is on everybody's mind. And our site coordinator, Owen Collings, has been doing a wonderful job working with our partners and heritage management team on the debris removal process and the planning process associated with it. And Owen is able to provide an update for us this evening. Go ahead, Owen.
Can everybody hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. First off, I guess I'd like to do a brief introduction because maybe some people don't even know me at all, but of course, local residents may know me pretty well because I've been around for about 27 years, primarily over on the west side. And then my wife and I moved into town thinking it would be a safer place to live and lost our house along with a lot of other fellow residents. So I understand and feel your pain. After the fire, we quickly volunteered, both of us volunteered to SIF with Rubicon. We wanted to get involved and continue to do that for weeks and weeks, helping residents to go in to retrieve their belongings. And after Rubicon and Samaritan's Purse left, I continued to take people into their residences and help them retrieve more items. So I got more involved. And then just a couple of weeks ago, Tim McLeod had to suddenly depart rather hastily because of our second catastrophic event in the province. And he removed himself to go and help and assist in the flooded areas, and I took over. Just before he left, he introduced a 3-phase debris removal process, which I wholeheartedly support. It definitely breaks it down into simpler components to understand. The first stage, which I think was mentioned at the last night, Ron Dickinson mentioned the stages of the debris removal, but I'll give you a few more details. The first stage being the surface metal debris removal is now considered to be of low risk by the Ministry of the Environment. We had meetings as recently as last week, and they assured us that because of the abnormal amounts of rain, it's been thoroughly rinsed and drenched, and so it's no longer hazardous. So we'll be able to retrieve that metal rather simply. Only have to give it a brief wash off the bottom where it's touching the ground, and so we'll be able to remove that rather simply compared to the other debris. It makes sense that we take the metal first. Normally, the metal would be compacted and shipped to recycling stages centers in Kamloops or the Lower Mainland. But due to the catastrophic flooding and washouts, which we just heard from Steve in Moti, that the road closures in the metal now means that we may not be able to remove the metal and send it to those staging areas in Kamloops or the Lower Mainland, and we will have to hold it near Lytton in a laydown area. So we've identified a couple of places that may be potential laydown areas that we can keep it until it's safe to move it, or the highways open up enough that we can remove it. So that's the metal. Also related to the road closures, which has put a bit of a damper on going forward with the metal removal, is the road closures have also delayed personnel and equipment from arriving in the area, as well as the operators, the drivers, and all the personnel required to do this metal removal. We can't accommodate them locally very easily. Normally they're accommodated in like Boston Bar or Hope or even Cache Creek, and we're cut off for that. So until we can accommodate those folks, that's another thing that we have to work out. You've already mentioned, Steve, about the washout. I was down there yesterday at Jackass Mountain, and I would hopefully like to think that they would be able to get that Bailey Bridge in before Christmas, but I don't know. It's pretty daunting. When that does come open, we can get transport trucks and cargo up here, and we'll maybe be able to bring in heavy equipment that we need for the metal removal. Phase 2 is more hazardous. That is all of the non-metal debris, and it's going to require more specialized handling. For example, all the bins and liners and trucks, and even the laydown area require double layered membranes made out of 6 mil plastic, and they'd have to be dammed up and held. So that's a bit more complicated, and they'd have to remain safe in the laydown area until they could be transported to TNRD sites that have already been predetermined. The phase 3 is the removal of foundation and any remaining contaminated earth or material around those foundations, and that also going to require a special individual treatment. All 3 phases are going to require also another component of the debris removal, and this is an important component. The Kumsheen Fire Recovery Heritage Management group it requires that all steps of the debris removal be observed by First Nations and Oklahoma heritage monitors. They'll be present during all the debris removal for monitoring and mitigation, along with the assistance from the Provincial Archaeological Branch. More recently, these are a couple of small items that just came up. I mean, the other things have been ongoing since I started 2 weeks ago. But just as recently as today, I finally got some movement on a couple of things. I met with the commander or the leader of the local forestry base. Probably all know who he is. And his crew has already cut down and bucked up a lot of dead trees along the property lines on the village right-of-ways and the sidewalks. So they've been dropped and bucked up and cleared and put in brush piles, and we're going to remove them as early as tomorrow with a dump truck and take them to a safe burning site outside the village. And it'll be announced when that's going to be, so that everybody will know when those burning piles are going to go on, and it'll be pretty far removed from the village. Their sites already established for that. Also, today I met with 2 local regional BC Hydro personnel. who were here just after the fire. They were in charge of the dropping of the poles and the wires and all the hardware. And so they very kindly came personally back to Lytton to go around the whole village with me. And we identified every piece of wire and post and hardware to be removed. And we came up with a plan that we're going to do that. And I hope to do that very soon, because previously that was going to be left until just before the general cleanup. But I don't think we should wait. We should get the roads clear, so it's going to make it easier to remove the metal. One last thing, this also just came up in the last couple of days. There's a citizens group is right now organizing to remove and store the ornamental street signs. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to happen. It's kind of being worked out, I think, with the council as well as this. But they are concerned about them. They're beautiful signs. They're definitely part of the village's nature or character. I often look at them and think, yeah, we got to do something with these signs. So they are going forward, I hope, with a plan to protect them in some way, even if they take them down and store them. And that's the latest thing right up until today. That's my report for now. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Owen. And Owen won't mention this, but he's been doing incredible work, not only on putting together the debris removal plan, but also working with a number of the laborers on site to push back the fencing to enable the heavy equipment to come through town and some of the snow mitigation needed. So we really, really appreciate Owen and his wealth of knowledge and his contribution to our team. In the 2 weeks he's been here, he's done incredible, incredible work. One thing I would add to some of the access issues and the labor issues we have with the vehicles coming on site to do debris removal is also related to the highways, in that there are load restrictions. So there's only a certain level of load allowed on the highways, and that makes things even more complicated to try and arrange that debris removal. So following the debris removal, of course, will be the permitting process. And we have on with our team, Ron Dickinson, who is our Director of Development. And he's going to give a short overview of what the the permitting process will look like once we get to that stage after debris removal. So, Ron Dickinson.
Thank you, Allison.
You're welcome.
I'm speaking to everybody from the Silix territory. So as you can see, we're all over the place, but our hearts and minds are in Lytton, and hopefully the roads will accommodate us. Anyway, what I've been doing, all the things that we just heard from Owen, I've been involved in, like the decision, the team, not the work that Owen's been doing, which it would be nice to be on both sides, but unfortunately that's not in my bailiwick at the moment. But I've been involved in that decision-making process to try and integrate the needs that we're all going to have when we get to the demolition is pretty much a patent situation. But when we get to the building stage, I'm trying to integrate as much of the groundwork issues related to building the buildings into the demolition process at phase 3, in that we can then drive into the lots, make holes large enough to accommodate the foundation work that will be required for whatever buildings are determined are going to be on the site. And that's the bulk of what we're doing right now. And until we get clearance from Ministry of Environment to say that things are safe, the permitting and processing of the heritage issues, we can't really issue building or demolition permits. So we're right in there. We're working hard to get to that point, and we're not waiting for the end. We're working in the middle of it to try and take as much advantage of what's going on as possible. But we'll just have to wait until we get clear approval from Heritage and from Ministry of Environment to say that they're satisfied and we can carry on with the really intense construction cycle, which will be very disruptive to the surface. There's going to be a lot of holes, a lot of equipment, right from the builders' small vehicles to large vehicles delivering materials and trusses and everything else, or maybe even whole buildings. Depends on what the decisions are. Anyway, that's a brief story about what's going on in my world and your world, and look forward to meeting most of you on site as soon as we can get the chance. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ron. Jasmine, over to you.
Perfect, thanks. So if anybody has questions, I see a few have come in, and I have a number that were sent in advance that we'll quickly go through. We have a couple more minutes in this section, but please, if you have any others, put them in the chat there. The first question is regarding danger tree removal. So is there an opportunity for forestry to help with problem trees or danger trees on private property? If so, where is the application form, and will the tree removal occur this winter, if so?
I think Owen had alluded to that in his update. I'm not sure about the danger trees on private property. Owen, would you mind speaking
okay,
to that?
from what I understand, maybe Ron can help me out too, but from what I understand, the trees that are on private property and are insured, they would be dealing with their insurance agents. I understand that the people who are going to do renovations on their property have expert fallers to do that, and it could be included in that. For the uninsured people, I think there may be an opportunity to have somebody else come in and do it. We just need permission from the owners to do it. As for the forestry helping us out, right now they're just helping us out with the right-of-ways in the streets. I will inquire as to see if they can do that for uninsured people, because the firefighters have been given an extension on their work period. They're going to be operational up until about Christmas. I think they go off for a Christmas break around the 20th or something like that, but then they'll be back in January. So yes, there might be an opportunity. I'll get back to you on that for sure.
Great, thanks, Owen. The second question here is, have surveys been completed for all private properties? And if so, who has paid for it, and where can we access the survey certificates? And will the survey certificates be sufficient for future building applications?
Ron Dickinson, I think you might be able to add that.
Yes, definitely the last of your statement first. Survey certificates will be required for every building permit that's issued. So that's a common practice throughout the building industry in North America, for that matter. But I mean, it's a common practice in BC, and we will be asking for that. And that relates to making sure that the buildings are properly separated from one another for fire and safety issues, as well as just the aesthetics of the community. And they have to meet the zoning requirements. And all those things are given assurance through the survey certificates. Tim McLeod, who was mentioned earlier, he and I talked about this in the very beginning, and his idea was to set monuments in the streets and other places where they will not be disturbed. Now, a monument isn't what you think in a park. This is a survey monument. It's a little hole in the ground with a nail in it, but it's something surveyors can work off of. So we will be able to survey lots relatively simply from monuments, in spite of the fact that there may not ever have been a pin in the lot, or the pins may have been disturbed during all the demolition work and everything else. So we've gone as far as we can to date to get the survey, to make sure that the surveys will happen as easily as possible. At the end of the day, the building permit requirement will be for a BC licensed surveyor to provide a survey certificate. And that will just be a cost that will be part of the building process, I presume, but it will be up to the landowners to provide the survey certificates for each parcel.
Great, thank you so much. And Leslie and Council, I see your hand is up over there. Is that an error, or would you like to speak?
Thanks for that, Jasmine. Yeah, I did put my hand up. So my name is Darlene Clark and I'm with Community Recovery with Emergency Management BC. And I just wanted to go back to the question on the danger tree removals on private property. And I just wanted to let the residents know that EMBC has started that conversation with the BC Wildfire Service, and we'll work with Owen Collins on the ground on how to support those danger tree removals on private land. I know that the conversation's already started. So I just wanted to update everybody on that. Thanks.
Great, that's perfect.
Yeah, thank you very much.
The next question here is if property owners would like to access their property, who do they contact?
Me.
Owen? Okay. Perfect. Owen, we'll
Nice
put
and simple.
your email in the chat there.
There is an email, site support@lytton.ca, that goes directly to Owen. Yeah, we'll move on to, okay, great. So we'll move on to another topic that I know is near and dear to everyone, and that is housing. I'm going to have Red Cross speak to some of this later this evening, but I do want to address some of the interim housing conversations that we've been having. We have recently received some of the survey data, and so we're going to be going through that to determine exactly what the needs are for interim housing and who exactly is looking for interim housing. One of the challenges, of course, is, and our first priority is debris removal. You know, we can't unfortunately do much without doing that first step. So all of our resources and efforts are being focused there. But as Ron Dickinson indicated, we are doing a lot of work as well in the background to ensure that once we reach the third stage of that debris removal process, we're going to be able to move very, very quickly on the permitting process. So that is pretty much the update on the interim housing. We do also have a opportunity perhaps at the Aspen Plainer site. We don't have, we're working through some logistical things on the back end there. So there isn't, we don't have much of an update to give, only that, you know, we are working on all of our options that are available at this time. So I welcome your questions on the emergency housing piece, but understand that, you know, we are really waiting for the debris removal process to be underway. And once we again reach that third stage, we're going to be able to really make a move, and you're going to start seeing a lot of progress very after that that phase begins.
Perfect. Thanks, Allison. And sorry I dropped off there, everyone.
No worries. Happy to have you back.
So Zoom is not my friend today.
Yeah.
I didn't get any emergency housing questions in advance, so please, if you have any, drop them in the chat there. I'll just wait a couple minutes. Or raise your hand too if you have any questions. I'm not seeing any come in, so let's move on to the next section. And if anybody thinks of anything, please put it in the chat and we can come back to it later. Oh, Noni, I see your hand is raised. I will unmute you now.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Allison, but I'm still confused. Maybe there's another person confused as I am. The debris removal slows everything down for temporary housing. I'm sorry, but I don't understand how removing debris in the village of Lytton would slow down temporary housing at Aspen Plainer site. I'm sorry, but please explain that to me, how that works. I just don't get that.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. So we have been working very closely with the property owner at the Aspen Plainer site on a number of things, the site remediation and the possible opening of the village office at the Aspen Plainer site. And there's a number of other site considerations we need to address. So the debris removal at the village site is one part of the process. The Aspen Plainers site is another part of the process. So temporary housing at Aspen Plainers is something we are working very closely with the property owner on, and we expect to have updates on that, I expect, in the next week to couple weeks.
Great, thank you so much. Feel free to move on to finances here.
Okay, great. So the next stage of the interim recovery plan is the financial and in-kind supports. As you may be, the community may be aware, the council passed the terms of reference for the Unmet Needs Committee, which we have a call out on the website right now for anyone who may be interested in joining the Unmet Needs Committee. The deadline to apply to that is December 15th. So I really strongly encourage everyone to apply who is interested. Essentially what the Unmet Needs Committee will be doing is under the leadership of council, we will be looking at donations management, working with our NGO partners to more effectively provide for the unmet needs as identified by the committee members, and working on volunteer coordination. So yeah, we're very much looking forward to getting that committee stood up, and there'll be more news on that to follow. We have a number, I know that there is a number of questions about food security. And as the community knows, the SISCA, the SCUPA, and the Westside Hall have been leaders throughout this very difficult time in providing food security to the entire community. So very, very grateful for those supports. And I will chat about the Resiliency Center later and the great work going on there. Were there questions about? Sorry, Jasmine, I'll turn it over to you.
That's great. Yeah. Any questions related to finances or in-kind support, please drop those into the chat now. I do have one that's related to property taxes that we received. And that is, where can we get a copy of our property taxes? I was told they were mailed out December 3rd. I also have a deadline of December 20th to apply for HOG.
I know the homeowners grant, perhaps Terry Hawes, our Chief Financial Officer, might be able to speak to the deadline for the homeowners grant and the taxes. Sorry, Terry, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Sorry, just to be clear, Allison, can you just repeat the question for me to make sure I get it correct?
Absolutely. There is a question about property taxes and when those notices were mailed out, and a question about the deadline for the homeowners grant.
And where they can get a copy of their property.
Yes. Thank you, Jasmine.
Okay. So the property tax notices were reprinted and mailed approximately a week ago today. And so I'm not sure where the mail is being forwarded to for each property owner, but wherever that is where it should end up. Certainly, if you contact finance@lytton.ca, if you want an email copy, like a PDF copy, we're happy to send that to you. So that answers those two questions, I believe. In terms of the homeowner grant for 2021, you have until December the 31st, 2022 to apply for it. And we've put, Jasmine, correct me if I'm wrong, we've put it on the Lytton website as to the link that you need to go to, because the homeowner grant has transitioned from applying with the village. You have to do it with the province directly now. And so we put that link on the village website, I believe.
Yes, yeah, it was in the last update, and it is also on the taxes page. And I'll go find that page in just 1 second and put it in the chat for everybody.
Right. So there is a fair amount of time, quite frankly, to apply for that grant, but I would suggest to you the sooner the better. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. The next question in this section is, will the Village of Lytton be distributing food donations through the Resiliency Center or elsewhere?
Thank you for that question. We did have a discussion about that and felt, we didn't want to confuse some of the area residents who are already making use of the relief centers at Shkapa, Siska, and at the West Side Hall. We have directed any additional food donations that have been received at the Resiliency Center. We have passed those along to the 3 relief centers that I just mentioned. But the relief center is more intended to be a place as a community hub to go and have a coffee and get some resources and play some crib. That's, I understand, it's going to be a new event at the Resiliency Center.
Thanks, Allison. That's the last question on that topic, so please feel free to move on. You're on mute, Allison.
That is one of the problems we have in this day and age with Zoom. My apologies. So for essential services, we have updates this evening from IHA and from the BC Ambulance Service. So I will ask Lisa. I don't know how to pronounce your last name. My apologies.
Everyone just calls me Lisa Zizi, and you all can do the same.
Thank you very much, Lisa. If you could give us your update from IHA. Thank you so much.
Not a problem. So I'm happy to report that we are in the Lytton First Nation building now. Yesterday, we had our first day where we were providing vaccine. Today, we were setting up our clinic room, and tomorrow we begin to provide services for home health and community care. We also will have mental health and OAT, so opiate agonist treatment program, available during the month of December. We have the facility manned 3 days a week right now. We will be moving up to 5 days a week in January. We have posted the medical office assistant as well as the nursing positions for primary care, and are working with our primary care provider, Dr. DeClerc, to arrange both in-person and virtual visits. We were hoping for more in-person visits. Unfortunately, with the latest highway challenges, he's a bit challenged coming from the Lower Mainland, but is looking forward to the roads being reopened, which I'm hearing January, which makes me very happy as well. And I think from the perspective of what's next, because I know that this was our temporary solution, we actually are working with a larger group from Ministry of Health, First Nations Health Authority, and Interior Health to look at rebuilding when we're given clearance to do so. And right now we're in the process of looking at what the community supports will need to be on a permanent basis. So again, this is an interim step, but we do look forward to having full services resume.
Oh, Allison, you're on mute.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Really appreciate that update. I know we have Sergeant Clay from the RCMP on the line. My apologies, Sergeant Clay. I didn't contact you before, but I know you provided a short update on the RCMP detachment last night. Would you mind providing just a very quick overview of the RCMP update? My apologies again.
No problem, Allison. Thanks a lot. So the update with the RCMP detachment is we're still working with LFN to get the site at the old hospital there on the corner leased to us. The portable detachment that we have identified to bring down is ready to go. ATCO Services will be moving it for us. At the point where we have the lease secured, they will take about 10 days to get it down. And it'll take us another probably 2 weeks to get it operational with our IT services and our security section and everything along those lines. From there, we'll be able to resume in-office policing activities. That being said, we're still running with our core group in Lytton. We brought in a third member here about 2 weeks ago. So Constable Brandon Tucker arrived in the community with his wife. And they're here now for their 3-year tenure in the community. Although Constable Tucker's primary duties will be liaison to Siska, Scuppa, LFN, and Kanaka, he will still be doing regular core policing services, general calls for service in the community.
Thank you very much, Sergeant Clay. Really appreciate the update. And I apologize, I didn't know how long we had you, so wanted to make sure we squeezed you in.
That's no problem. And if there's any questions, I can answer those too if anybody has anything.
Great. We'll move on then to the ambulance service. And Kathy Hibberson is on the line, and she will be able to provide an update for us. Thank you so much, Kathy.
Good evening, Allison. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for coming. It's a very brief update. Along with everyone else, we have run into issues accessing the sites, the services that we need. So our potential temporary station has been delayed. We are still working on it. It is still coming to Lytton, just not as soon as we all would have liked.
Very good. Thank you very much, Kathy. Over to you, Jasmine.
Great, thank you so much. If anybody has any questions relating to emergency or essential services, please drop those in the chat or raise your hand. I have one that, oh, Noni McCann, let's go to you first. There you go, you should be able to unmute.
That's what I do, I ask questions.
That's great, that's why we're here.
First one is for Lisa. I couldn't catch every single little thing that she said, and I'm wondering, where is the information about the health posted? Like, where can we see the services and the hours of operation for the temporary station functioning health center?
Yeah, you know what, Noni, that is an excellent idea. And I don't think we have posted them. So Allison, is there a way that I can send them through and we can have them on the website? I have a brilliant little calendar, but I'm assuming that everybody on this call needs a brilliant calendar. And Noni, I just want to thank you for asking the questions and for reaching out. You're the first person who's emailed me directly. Usually nobody really talks to me. So it made me super happy that you actually did reach out and that you care so much about your community. That has come through in spades, and I wish I were your neighbor.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing this. I know I have some friends that will really appreciate having that service a little closer to home.
For sure.
And thank you. It's nice to see your face and know who you are.
Hi.
Thank you so much for that.
My second question is for the RCMP. It's another similar kind of question. I have something that I'm planning in the community, and I would like to know how to contact the local residents for non-emergency information and just to get a hold of someone.
So nothing has changed there, Noni. Our phones are still the same. So the phones are just forwarded right now during business hours to the office in Lillooet. I don't have like a local number. You can't just call the local number and get a hold of Mike because I don't have it looped back to the cell phones yet. But the same number you've called for years and years still rings and still answered.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Perfect. Thanks, Noni. And that is it for that section. So please feel free to move forward.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jasmine. So we're moving on to local government. And as I spoke to at the very beginning, we have really staffed up our village recovery team, and we're incredibly happy to have such an incredibly committed group, as Ron Dickinson talked about earlier. We are under the wonderful leadership of course, Mayor and Council, and our acting CAO, Leslie Grew, who is in the conference room this evening. Give a wave. And of course, myself is on board as the recovery manager. Terry Hawes, that you heard from earlier, is our CFO. And Ron Dickinson, of course, is our Director of Development. We also have a new project manager on board. James High is our project manager. And I have asked him to give a short introduction, if he wouldn't mind. James, are you around? I know he had a number of commitments this evening, and we're working very, very hard on a recovery plan, and particularly around water infrastructure and some of that debris removal piece that I spoke about earlier. So very happy to introduce him at a later time, but he is originally from Lillooet and was one of the original members of the Rattlers in Lytton. So he's spent a lot of time in Lytton and is very, very familiar with the area, and is excited to get on the ground. I'd also like to chat a little bit about the Citizens Advisory Committee, who's going, again, under the leadership of Council. And the Citizens Advisory Committee was stood up to allow citizens to provide recommendations to Council on matters concerning policy, bylaw development, official community planning, and that sort of thing. So we're very happy, and the next meeting of the Citizens Advisory Council is going to be held on the 15th. We absolutely encourage folks to listen in and hear the questions the Citizens Advisory Council puts forward. And those details are on the website. So that is the local government piece. Does anyone?
Great.
I'll pass it through to Jasmine.
Thanks so much. So again, if anybody has any questions, please put those in the chat or raise your hand. I do have a number that came in through email in advance, so I'll start with those. The first is, what is the criteria used to select the Citizens Advisory Committee members? I don't know if somebody can speak to that today.
The criteria, the Citizens Advisory Committee members are appointed by a resolution of Council. So that decision is made by Council.
Perfect, thanks so much. And then the next one is, people on the CAC have commented that there is limited ability for them to add items and for the public to add items to that agenda. So they're just wondering what the process is for bringing concerns forward to this committee.
Well, normally any questions would be brought forward through the council chair. That would be the normal procedure.
Great, and at this stage, I know we're we're appointing a new chair to that committee. So would you recommend people sort of email their concerns to communication@lytton.ca and we'll
Yes, I would.
triage until there's a chair at this point? Okay,
Absolutely.
perfect. That's great. The next question here is, what constitutes correspondence noted in the minutes or agenda packages? So just clarifying that when correspondence is added to a council meeting agenda, sort of what is that? What are the parameters surrounding it? I don't know if Leslie maybe, or Allison, sorry.
Yeah.
So this
Perfect.
is through the acting CAO. So generally speaking, how it works and through the council procedure bylaw, correspondence that's addressed directly to mayor and council or to mayor specifically is put onto the council agenda. If there's an action item that's required out of that correspondence, it's on one section of the agenda. If it's information only, it goes on the next section of the agenda. And it's usually around about 10.4 or 10.5 of the agenda. And council, if it's required action, they do a resolution on a decision how to respond to that. It goes back to the people that have submitted the correspondence. And then there's also a section on the current agenda that shows what council has been putting out in response to correspondence that they've received and decisions they've made.
Perfect. Thanks, Leslie. The next question is, and this is relating to water utilities, the announcement that Mayor Polderman made earlier today. So why was there a decision made to use the donations to cover sewer/water? Was it made in a council meeting? So if you can just clarify.
That decision was made at yesterday's council meeting. The reason to use donations is that the water and sewer systems cost money to operate, whether we have citizens using them or not. And seeing as we had a fire and the citizens who lost their homes, we tried to give them as big a financial break as we could.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Polderman. The last question in this section that we have time for is, will there be a by-election to fill the vacant council seat, and will it be in January? If so.
I can answer that question at this point. So there will be, it's up to the council to decide if it's practical to do a by-election, and that conversation will come to council at the next council meeting.
Perfect. That's great. Thanks so much. And just in the interest of time, let's move on to economy, Allison.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And the council procedures bylaw and every other bylaw of the Village of Lytton is on the website. So I would encourage anyone with any questions to take a look at the bylaws that are on the website. Moving on to the economy section, we have a number of initiatives underway. We have very excited to post a position for an economic development officer. So we are going to be searching for an EDO to help start and kickstart the local economy in Lytton in partnership with all of our neighboring communities. And in partnership with a number of the area businesses that I know really want to get back to Lytton. We also have a job posting for a communications support person and an administrative support person. So both very, very important roles. We are strongly encouraging members of the local community to apply for these roles, and very excited to bring these and augment our team in the coming weeks. I know also that Community Futures has been working very hard with area businesses, and I know that Deb Arnott has an update this evening about some exciting new initiatives at the Resiliency Center.
Thank you, Allison, and good evening, everyone. I can't put on my video because I'm working from home, so there's only so much broadband, so I apologize for that. Yeah, so I just wanted to share, there has been some chatter for the last 3 months about setting up a business incubator center. Just for some background, I was contacted by some of my colleagues back at the end of August, beginning of September, advising that we had some funding and could we use it for some initiative. And at that time, the first thing that came to my mind was that I knew that we would need a business incubator center for the businesses. I just wasn't sure when, so our office received the funding, I put it aside, and so the last couple of weeks I've been working on getting the equipment together. So we've been able to purchase 3 laptops, a brand new printer, scanner. I also reached out to the community and I received also a photocopier printer that was donated by Cal Tire in Cache Creek, and right now they're getting some parts to ensure that it's going to be running the way it needs to be, because as we know, it's very difficult to get in and out of Lytton. So I wanted to make sure that it was running to the best that it could. Also got a case of paper, because that's something that people don't think about, is paper and cartridges for the printer, all of that kind of things. So we're planning on setting up that business incubator center. So the first thing that also came to mind was some support staff to assist the businesses at the center. We do have regional business liaisons out in the field, but I wanted people on site, and also I thought it was really important to hire local people. They need to have some jobs. They need to have some income. So I applied with the Aboriginal Skills Employment and Training Strategy and was approved for 2 full-time individuals. So we've started marketing that, I think, on Tuesday for those individuals. So going to be working on that and getting those individuals in place as soon as we possibly can. So the vision is we're going to have this equipment. It's going to be set up for the businesses so they can do their research to access any funding supports, or maybe they're still working on their insurance papers or for programs. And this is a site they can go to and ensure that they can get all that support, and everything, of course, will be free of charge. This is also an opportunity with this equipment for the businesses to access one-on-one through Zoom. We have a team of experts in the field in the province that will meet with these individuals. We've got lawyers, certified accountants, all of those kind of individuals that we're going to need in the next few months. And they have an opportunity to sit one-on-one and get that one-on-one confidential counseling, which I think is really, really important. I'm just going through all my notes. Oh yes, one of the other things that we recognized very quickly, also talking with the businesses, was the free workshops that are available. So what I've had staff do was to compile all the free workshops and put them in one table. We have sent that out a couple of times to our Lytton database emails and sent that out, but we also have it on Community Futures website at cfsun.ca, and that is updated weekly. And we've set it up so that if businesses go onto that table, they can click that link and it takes them right in. And if for whatever reason the site is asking for some kind of a payment, they just contact us and we will give them a code to ensure that it is free of charge. And for those that weren't aware, we also started working at the end of August, September, and most of October, doing questionnaires with the business community. And the reason that we were doing that is we needed to do a pulse check. Through my experience with the wildfires in 2017, that was something that really assisted us to know where the gaps were. So we have now completed a summary of those results, and we're now developing those programs to meet the needs of those businesses. So like I said, we have distributed those widely, but once again, if you'd like to look at the report, it's also on Community Futures website at cfsun.ca. Community Futures also has a disaster business support site, and we also have a toll-free line. So that toll-free line is working 24/7. So if there's a business that, and I'm sure that many go through this just like I do. In the middle of the night, you kind of wake up and you think about something and you think, well, how can I find that out? Or, because there's just so much going on in their lives. They can call this toll-free line and actually talk to a warm body. And also there's once again a website, and that's at cfdisastersupport.ca, and we have a list of resources that the businesses can access. We keep that updated so that people are aware of the programs available to them. Also earlier on, MP Vis mentioned about the loans support. I started in August, middle of August, starting to knock on doors. We need to look at 0% interest loans with flexible payments. In my mind, this is one of the only ways we're going to get our businesses back on their feet. Many have had no revenue for many, many months. They now have a balance sheet with a lot of debt, in some cases RRF or CEBA loans, and that is something also as the CF network across Canada, where we are now lobbying very hard for the government to look at that, especially for BC, because as we know, there's been many, many disasters. So that's something also that we're lobbying. So MP Vis, he's been doing a really great job of, shaking it up. We are just repeating that message over and over. We really need that in order to get our businesses up and moving. I'm really pleased to say also, when I was talking to Denise, who is overseeing the Resiliency Center in Lytton, we chatted about, being the month of December, it's already challenging, but I think with Christmas and the holiday season coming up, I mentioned to her about maybe getting a Christmas tree, and she thought that might be a good idea. So I reached out to the Ashcroft-Cache Creek area and have a Christmas tree with decorations and all kinds of Christmas decorations for the site. So we've got all of that compiled in our office at the Community Futures in Ashcroft. One of my staff members and myself will be leaving in the morning. We're loading up the truck and we're going to make the trek over to Lytton. We'll go through Lillooet and the back road. I wanted to wait till it was cold and freezing because I heard that, it possibly snow, and anybody that's driven that road, it's already tough. So I wanted to make sure that there wasn't an incident as we're traveling over there. So we'll be doing the road trip tomorrow, setting the business incubator site up. We'll take some pictures and I'll share that with Jasmine, and she can post it on the website so everybody can have a visual of what that's going to look like. I'm extremely excited. I just feel like I need to really do something more. We've been doing a lot of work in the background, but I think to have that visual of that site and sharing that with the community, I think is really, really important. But I think I've covered everything, Allison. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so, so much, Deb, for all your incredible advocacy and your work. I just want to acknowledge really quickly as well that we're so, so incredibly grateful for the funding that's been provided by the provincial government to assist us with the economic development initiatives, and particularly to the Northern Development Initiative Trust that is going to be helping fund the EDO position, as well as that grant funding we're so grateful for. So over to Jasmine.
Thanks so much, Allison. And you kind of just answered the question that we received on this topic, but just in case there's more, I'll officially ask it here. So at the time that the short-term recovery plan was made public, many items didn't have secured funding. When will you provide an updated version of the plan indicating newly secured funding for priorities and actions? Oh, and then also, sorry, there's a follow-up here. Will those priorities and actions not happen if funding isn't secured?
I can't speak to what may or may not be funded, but we are working very, very hard with our partners at EMBC and with our other funding partners to get some of that in place. I'm not sure, Darlene, did you want to speak to that, or?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm the best person, and I don't.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I do recognize that I have some senior executive on the call. So maybe I'll just leave a space or two to see if any of our ministry executive are able to jump up. jump onto this.
And I actually see that Dave put some details in the chat there for everybody to review.
Perfect.
We can't see them on our screen.
Dave, feel free to speak up.
You, Adie and Peter.
Let me.
Appreciated.
There you go, Dave. Sorry about that. You should be able to unmute now.
Yeah, thank you. And I was actually busy typing that into the chat, so I missed exactly what the question was on the funding, but I believe I heard Allison say that's a process that we'll continue to work through. And I did try to respond to the specific questions that were already there in the chat line, but a number of positions and services and functions we have already agreed to pay for, and there's lots of others that we're still in conversation.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you, Dave. Very appreciated. And then Allison, let's move on to the next section just in the interest of time here.
Of course, of course. Critical infrastructure. So I know that folks have had questions about the water infrastructure. And as you may know, the damage to the reservoir, there was damage to the intake for the reservoir system. We have that intake being cleared out. I believe I heard that was happening actually today. So that's great news. And we're going to be able to reduce our reliance on well number 2 as the sole source of water to the village. So that's great news. On the do not consume order, we also have some hopefully good news to share, hopefully in the next few days. We're just waiting for some of those final testing results to come in. And we anticipate those either by tomorrow or by early in the week. So very excited to have that, to have an update on that. So I know Rod Bate and Owen have been working very hard as well to get those testing results to our colleagues at IHA for them to be able to make a decision on either lifting or downgrading the do not consume order. Over to Jasmine.
Perfect. That's great. The first question here is, what is the plan around public works for those of us currently living within the village boundaries? So if they have an issue with water or sewer, who do they contact? The other question is about snow plowing this year and mowing and clearing. So will those services still happen?
That's a good question. Unfortunately, I don't have an answer for it right at the moment. I know that folks can contact Public Works at lytton.ca is the email address for that. And I can take away the remainder of the questions, and we can get back to folks on that.
That's great. Thanks, Allison. And then just one final one here is, what's the holdup with the water testing? Is there a specific reason that can be elaborated on?
Yeah, I know that Lindsay from Urban Systems is on the call. Lindsay, would you mind jumping in with an update on that?
Yeah, you bet, Allison.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lindsay. I'm from Urban Systems. So I managed to get into community to Lytton 2 Mondays ago. We are taking, I took 28 samples, 28 bottles, and brought them back to Kamloops for testing. There are a number of high-level unusual tests. They're non-typical. And what those tests are doing is they're testing for chemicals in the water. We're hoping that they don't come out as having anything, but you never quite know. So IHA and FNHA want to be sure that everything is good before people are consuming the water. Those tests take a little bit longer. So as everything else, we've been impacted by travel, right? So some of those tests get sent down to Vancouver. It's taking a little bit longer. I do know that First Nation Health Authority has tried to put a rush on all of the tests. So we're hoping that some of these week-long windows will be shortened so that we can get those tests back, like Allison mentioned.
Thanks, Lindsay. And then maybe just to follow up here while I have you, for the Anglican parish buildings, have water lines been blown out or drained to prevent further damage? Do you know about any of that?
I don't know.
I can answer that.
Do you? Okay, super.
Oh, good.
I can answer that. This is Peggy Chute.
Sure, Peggy, feel free.
Yes, we had them all blown out. I'd say it was in September or October, early October.
That's great.
Yes, it was all done.
Perfect. Thank you so much for stepping in there.
And
Thank you, Peggy.
I would just like to say that sometimes people don't step up enough, because I know that Noni knows a lot more about the food bank situation, because the Lytton Food Bank was in the parish hall and of course has not been accessible, and others have taken up the work, but the food bank is still supporting that work, and there's some wonderful things happening for the residents around Lytton. I think other people know more than I do, because I'm kind of on the periphery. Noni?
That's great. Thank you. We'll follow up on that too. All right, just in the interest of time, let's move on to communication and engagement. Allison.
Wonderful. This is the last section before I turn it over to the Red Cross. But I wanted to end this section on some really, really great news that we are seeing. The first is related to a conversation I had just this afternoon with the United Way, and they are offering another paid position for a community engagement specialist to work right in the community on, it's called the High Neighbor Initiative with the United Way. And we're very excited to have that. And we will be posting it on the website. So very, very happy to have that posted shortly. So watch for that. I also want to really formally recognize the work of Denise O'Connor and some of the incredible work being done by the volunteers at the Resiliency Center. In the 2 weeks it's been open, we have had in-person supports from the Insurance Bureau, from the Red Cross, from Disaster Psychosocial Services. There will be more to come, and it's really become what I hoped it would become when we started organizing it, and that is a community hub for people just to come and, you know, play cards or have a coffee and chat with your neighbors and maybe get some resources and really make those connections and rebuild and even have some Christmas cheer. So we're really, really happy to have that in place, and incredible thanks to Denise for all her incredible work on facilitating the Resiliency Center, and thanks to the volunteers especially that are making it happen.
That's great. Thanks, Allison. I'm not seeing any questions for that section right now. I didn't receive any in advance. So that's great, because we're just on time to turn it over to Jody, who's from the Red Cross. So Jody, I'm going to turn it over to you. I will share your presentation.
Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate your time.
Jasmine, and thank you, Allison. Good evening. My name is Jody Boyle. I'm the Senior Manager for Recovery Programs for BC and Yukon in emergency management for the Canadian Red Cross. I'm joining you today from the traditional territories of the Lekwungen speaking people here in Victoria, and recognizing that this meeting is about the village of Lytton, which is located on the traditional ancestral lands of the Inuit people. So I'm joined today by some of my colleagues. Just wanted to introduce them. You won't see, or you might see Tammy there. So Tammy Germain is our wildfires recovery manager. You may have seen her at the Resiliency Center this week, and we'll be there next week again. And she's going to join me to share some links in the chat as we go along. And we also do have Emily Pietropalo, who's kindly joined us from Ontario, so it's very late on her time. She's our Senior Director of Recovery Services for case management. So she's going to be, I've asked her to join to answer any questions, detailed questions about case management if we get any. And I know some are joining by phone and likely won't be able to see this presentation. So to make it accessible to all, I will read the slides, all the content. We've been asked to speak a little bit about who we are. The Canadian Red Cross is part of the International Red Cross movement, which is obviously a larger organization. That's the world's largest humanitarian and disaster response network. We're a registered charity. We operate independently and are not part of any government, but we can do work on behalf of government when we're requested to do so. We have agreements in over 1,000 municipalities in Canada, as well as most provinces and territories. We're volunteer driven. So the vast majority of the personnel that you would have seen in response are volunteers, but our recovery personnel are staff. So they're disaster management professionals in recovery. So while we have agreements to work and support government humanitarian work, we do so independently, and it's based on our fundamental principles. So these fundamental principles guide our work, whether it's armed conflict on the other side of the world, or if it's disaster recovery here in BC. If I could speak for a long time about our fundamental principles, but in the interest of time, I won't go into it. If anybody is interested in reading them or would like to know more about what they mean in the context of our work, they can follow the link in the chat, and I can make sure that I make it available afterwards as well. So Tammy, if you could share the link in the chat. So in addition to the fundamental principles, the Canadian Red Cross also delivers service in accordance with our Indigenous framework. So this guides our work with Indigenous people. It's a public commitment to providing community-based service delivery, our commitment to reconciliation, cultural safety, and collaboration. This document can also be found on our website. It can be shared in the chat right now as well, if you please, Tammy. So a little bit about our approach. We're community-led, so collaboration and partnership are central to our work. We work directly with community, other nonprofits, governments at all levels, and just about any collaboration table that we can get a seat at. We take a strength-based approach, which means we recognize the existing community capacity and inherent resiliency that these communities have. This is especially true in rural communities, I find. And this is really what draws me to this work, and it's my favorite part, is that community members really are the real experts in their own recovery. So I'm just continually awed by watching communities come together after disasters and really support each other, not just in rebuilding their own lives of their households and their families, but really that extended broader community. Next slide, please.
Can you see the 2021 wildlife recovery support on your end?
I can, yeah.
Okay, great.
Perfect, thank you.
No worries.
So I've outlined who we are, our approach, and our principles that guide our work. So on to the 2021 wildfire recovery supports that everybody is entitled to at this point. Personalized support to recovery, you may also hear be called case management. We use those terms interchangeably, but just conscious that case management might not really speak to people. So this is where you're connected into a case manager who specializes in disaster recovery. So I'll get into a bit more detail about what's being offered and what you can expect in later slides. So as you profoundly know, being through a traumatic event like a disaster is incredibly stressful. Recovering from one is a different type of prolonged stress, years filled with complex processes, forms, key decisions that you're going to have to make and that you've already likely had to make. So this is really personalized recovery support that you'll get from the Red Cross and from our case managers is designed to help walk with you throughout that process. And it really forms the foundation to accessing the other supports that I'm going to describe in a minute. So supports like housing repair and reconstruction, debris removal, interim housing assistance as well. Next slide. So personal recovery support, it isn't a menu per se. I know that we were asked for a bit of an itemized list, and we really don't have an itemized list of supports that you can be provided because it's really different for each individual. So what we've tried to do here is give you a bit more concrete examples to help people understand. So what does it look like? For starters, you would meet with a case manager. You would discuss your personal situation. They'll explain the recovery supports that are available to you at the moment. So this is highly individualized and it's shaped by so many different factors. So what's provided to any one household won't be the same as what's provided to another one. It's totally tailored to their unique situation. And no two households are alike. So the supports they get are going to be different. In addition, we can't duplicate supports. So for example, if you had full insurance coverage for something, you won't be then supported through it through the Red Cross as well, if that makes sense. So the case managers can assist you in navigating the recovery process and making informed decisions about your personal recovery plan and your efforts. They can help you write the recovery plan if that's what you'd like. Really ensuring that you understand how the process works, what are your options. Building your life back after a disaster can be so overwhelming, as you all profoundly know. And our teams can help prioritize, identify the next steps that need to be taken, immediate next steps, rather than looking at the entirety of what you have to tackle. They can support with forms and processes, so obtaining permits, for example. They can suggest referrals to other services. Going through this, you may need to access services that you've never had to access before. Things like legal advice, financial advice, mental health support, social supports that you've never even considered before. And there are other community agencies that specialize in this stuff, and we can make sure that we connect you to them. Our case managers can provide emotional support. So aside from just being a caring human connection, all of our case managers are trained in several evidence-based approaches, including psychological first aid, which is an international standard in post-disaster emotional support. We recognize also that can be barriers in accessing services. So some of the support that we can provide, for example, is financial assistance to help overcome those barriers. So maybe there's a counselor you need to see and there's a cost to it. They can help offset that, as well as things like transportation, if that's the barrier. Perhaps most importantly, it's really navigating through what is available to you and identifying, customized referrals. What is it exactly you're looking for? Where are you located? And what's going to be suitable? In some cases, at your request, we can directly connect you to some of those services. So even make appointments if that's what you request. Next page, please. So as part of our personalized support for recovery, we're also working with homeowners who've been unable to return home after the fires through housing repair and reconstruction support. So they might receive financial assistance for immediate needs, clean up their homes and property, as well as assist with rebuilding expenses related to rebuild or repair of their home. Next page. So as far as debris removal goes, some of the planning for this has been delayed by flooding, unfortunately, but we are working with the province of BC and the local authorities to assist with the costs associated with debris removal resulting from the fires. So people that have suffered damage or loss to their residence from the fires and don't have insurance can contact their local authorities for more information. The regional district will likely have the most up-to-date information, or Alice and her team can direct you when that's available. Next page, please. So interim housing, I know this has been a hot topic. So starting December 1st, on behalf of the province of BC, the Red Cross has been providing financial support to people for interim housing to people that have not been able to return to their home and don't have access to other financial supports. So that's an important clarifying point there. So it's based on criteria that's provided by EMBC. And we can link you to some more information that's located on the government's website. Tammy, again, if you want to pop that link in there. I know some are specifically looking for clarification on housing supports for both uninsured and insured residents. So the $1,300 is for households that don't have insurance coverage for interim housing or are not receiving housing supports from another source. So that goes back to the non-duplication component. So if you have it covered by your insurance, if you have it through another means, then it wouldn't be covered. But I think the vast majority of people aren't in that situation necessarily. So that's another component that you can talk to a case manager about, is if based on your situation, if that's something that you can access. So since we've been asked to support with this work, our case management team has phoned everyone registered with us. So we very much tried to reach out to people versus making them phone us. So we reached out to the people that in the regions we knew had the major destruction and the damage. So if there's anyone that is not connected in with us that feels they should be and would like to be, so you can give the number on the screen a call, or you can reach out to direct message Tammy Germain in the chat and provide your name and your information, and we will funnel that to our case management team. We're now providing, thank you. We're now providing multiple ways to access these supports. So for those who are limited by transportation or who phone or virtual is more convenient, they can continue accessing their case manager through those means. But for those who face barriers accessing services through phone or virtual means, or just prefer a human being sitting in front of them, we have begun outreach into communities. So we've put up the outreach schedule, and Jasmine, maybe we can, I'm not sure if you can put that on your website or a link to it on the website. So I'll provide a link. Actually, Tammy, if you can throw the link in, it's probably best to connect directly to the link because we will have updated dates and locations as the planning continues. This is my last slide, so I can leave that up while we answer any questions if you'd like. Thank you all very much for your time this evening.
Okay, thanks so much. Just going through here, just have to pull up the documents. Sorry about that. So any questions for the Red Cross, please throw those in the chat now or raise your hand. Denise, I am seeing your hand raised, so I'll ask you to unmute now.
Yes, hi, thank you. Thank you for that presentation. Could we have it emailed so that the Resilience Center can have it available, all that information? And as well, I have a question about the contact number. I believe in a village update, it said that number was dedicated for Lytton. But I know when we called it, it's the same number that's on all of the other pamphlets and such. So is there a dedicated number for Lytton or not? Thank you.
Not at this point. So that phone line is for all 2021 fires. And in fact, in some cases, we're using it for floods as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I'm happy to get you those documents, Denise.
And Noni, I'm going to ask you to unmute now.
I heard you say that primarily your services are for uninsured people. But when I saw some of the services you were talking about, they were things like personal assistance, personal counseling, personal help with finances. So even that stuff is not available if you have an insurance policy that you're living under?
That's a great question, Noni. I'm glad you asked that because it's an important point of clarification. Case management is available to anyone impacted. So anyone impacted can have that guidance and that support. But when it comes to a funding program, the funding typically has a criteria to it that can't be duplicated. So if it's covered by another means, the other means being your insurance, that's what it was intended for. Red Cross funds can't be used for that. So all of the other suites are available to you, and a case manager will be able to outline that based on your situation.
Okay, thank you.
And Tammy, I see your hand up. I don't know if you want to clarify anything.
Can't hear you, Tammy.
Oh. Still can't, but it says your microphone is on.
Maybe you can type me a message, Tammy, or type it in the chat. There we go.
Perfect. And I do see that Tammy's been responding to a number of other questions in the chat directly, so that is great. Oh, and she just wanted to say links are in the chat, so that is perfect. I think that is everything for Red Cross at this point. So thank you so much for being here with us, Jody. That's great.
Thank you for giving the space to speak.
So we just have a couple more minutes here tonight, and maybe I'll use about 2 minutes to ask any final questions that came through. There are a number that we haven't been able to get to, unfortunately, but we will put those in a Q&A document and follow up for you. So the first question that is in the other open discussion section is, what about the official community plan? How will that be addressed throughout the recovery and rebuild?
Ron Dickinson to answer.
Ron Dickinson?
I'm coming. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah. To be honest, I'm a little surprised and don't know quite what to say because I haven't taken it on. But I'll just generally speak how it works. The official community plan is in place today, and it may or may not address all the issues that we now face because it was in place not thinking of the situation we find ourselves in. So it works today as it always worked, but it needs to be reviewed. And Mayor and Council will pick a time to do that and work our way through it. It's a very user-friendly, community-friendly process. There's a lot of opportunities for input and a lot of different opportunities to show what the outcomes are, how it evolves. It's an iterative process. So it'll take some time, but there'll be a lot of opportunity for people to have input into it. But again, it exists today, and it may not be a real high priority, but Mayor and Council will make that decision as time goes on.
Absolutely, and we're going to be, oh goodness, I don't know what happened there. But absolutely, thank you for that, Ron. And we are going to continue to take our leadership from Mayor and Council on this. And we are going to be beginning some of the long-term planning process, which will include the official community plan in the next few weeks.
Great, thanks so much. And we just have about 2 more minutes here, so I'll ask one more question before we move into closing remarks. And that is, what emergency planning is underway to respond to potential emergencies we may experience over the winter and upcoming months? And how should people prepare?
That's a really good question. There's an incredible amount of resources on the BC website, Government of BC website with regards to emergency preparedness. And I would encourage folks to take a look for those. I'm happy to pass some of those along as well. Absolutely, we'll start to share those as well, and we'll provide further updates as we go along.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Allison. And I just see that Noni would like to share a good news story. So I'm gonna let Noni speak here, if you're still with us. There we go. Try now.
There it is.
Perfect.
Oh, there's Denise. Okay, I don't see myself, but I'll pretend others can see me. I just wanted to share that in the past few weeks, I've been working with David Choi and his family. And David is the owner of the AG Foods in Lytton, and he wanted to do something a little bit special for the residents of Lytton who are still in the area. And so together we've reached out to other community organizations to work with him, and the AG Foods distributor and the Choi family, Lytton First Nation, Lytton Food Bank, and Zenman Child and Family Development, N7 I forget Nzenman's proper title, but Nzenman and N7, we had like Stein Valley School, are all contributing additional funds to what the Choi family and the AG Foods are contributing, so that there is a huge truck full of groceries and other holiday treats for 500 food and Christmas holiday hampers to be delivered in this area on Monday the 13th. And so it's been a rather remarkable undertaking, an amazing offer from a business owner in our community, just missing being here and wanting to be a part of the community again, and working with people and sharing with everyone from Lytton, to the extent that he is actually doing all this and coming from where he is right now in Coquitlam to help make this all happen. So there's about probably 40 volunteers that'll be working with the family to unload and repackage and make sure all of this gets out. But I think it's really important to let others know that while you're working behind the scenes in Victoria, in Kamloops, and wherever you are, because there's hardly any of you here, the people that are here are also quite resourceful and are also well suited to helping ourselves, and like to work together and like to just kind of make things happen. So I'm really looking forward to the day when we can actually take over our town again and then live in it again. So thank you for all your hard work, and thank you for letting me share this little story tonight.
Thank you so much, Noni. That's great and so good to hear. So just to close it off today, I'm going to pass it over to Allison, who's just going to cover a couple next steps.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Noni, for that really good news story. I want to make sure, of course, everybody is aware of the next community meeting that is up on the screen right now. And I want to also highlight, that long-term planning process that I alluded to. We are going to be sending out further updates on that in the coming weeks. I want to mention again a shout out to the Resiliency Center and the folks that are there this evening. Thank you so much to everybody there. And also want to highlight the employment and volunteer opportunities on our website. Please take a look, pass them along to community members who may be interested in any of the positions that are posted, and keep watching, because we're going to be posting more opportunities and shortly. I'll just finish on a bit of a personal note. I'm really, really proud to serve this community. I've been to a lot of disasters in my work, and I haven't seen the communities that I've been a part of in helping them recover from disasters have been unlike Lytton in a lot of ways. And what I've really noticed in Lytton is the resiliency that Noni talked about, and that really strong commitment and drive to rebuild and recover. So I'm really, really proud to serve and really proud to be a part of this team. And I know I speak for all of my colleagues when I say that we are all really proud to serve. So we have a lot of work to do, of course, a vast amount of work to do, but we've done a lot, I think, in the last month or so since the last community meeting. And again, we're committed to helping in this rebuild and doing whatever we can. We're all committed very strongly to this. So thank you so much. I'll just pass it back to Jasmine for her final remarks. Thanks. Everyone.
Thank you, Allison. And I can honestly say I'm very glad you're here. Thank you so much for your leadership and for taking on this leadership role tonight too and answering these questions. I want to thank everybody here for attending today's community meeting. We really appreciate all of your questions and your feedback. Anything that didn't get answered today, as I mentioned, is going to be captured and responded to in that Q&A, and I will get that up within a week this time around. And again, if you have any additional questions that you didn't think of, please email those over to communication@lytton.ca, and one of us will be sure to get back to you as soon as we possibly can. Or you can also email a member of the team. We're going to post in staff contact information into the chat there, so you can go and find that on the website. And you can also call the number, and that is 778-254-5004 if you haven't called it before. We'll post that as well. So that brings us to the end of the evening. Thank you all so much for attending again, and have a great night. We'll see you in January.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Remember Kenny Wong. Kenny Wong was a businessman in our community for probably 30 years, and he was quite a character, looked after Jade Springs, and we need to remember him.
Thank you for that, Peggy.